I am Victoria L. Burson. This is Leadership on the Go. Leadership is not always preparedness for the unknown, but it is tapping into the unknown prepared. Greetings, 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 greetings. OMG, is it going to go down like 4 flat tires tonight? We have with us one of the most compelling, extraordinary bishop-elects, pastor, administrator. I could just go on and on and on and on and on tonight. We're going to introduce him in a second, but I just want to greet our viewers and thank you for following us every other week here on Leadership on the Go. And tonight we have even yet a greater opportunity to learn as leaders and followers of Christ. And so we just thank you this evening for being present. Will you like, tag, and share? Like, tag, and share. Not only that, not only do I want you to like, tag, and share, can you just let us know where you're hailing from, whether it's Baltimore, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Connecticut, whether it's Hawaii. Let us know where you are hailing from in the chat. And we are now present on Facebook Live, through Essentials, through my personal page, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So without further ado, I just want to get this party started tonight because I'm so excited about our guest, Bishop-elect Troy Sanders. That's right, Bishop-elect Troy Sanders. And we're so excited about him being present tonight from Atlanta, Georgia. Let me tell you a little bit about him. And when I get through, he'll come on in the room and continue to tell you what he is doing. Bishop-elect Troy Sanders' relationship with the divine started when he was a toddler, preaching on the front porch of his home in Denmark, South Carolina, and has served as the bedrock of his faith and ministry. As he grew, so did his yearning and zeal for spiritual things, resulting in a lifelong ministry designed to affect the lives of youth and adults. His ministerial background includes over 25 years as a licensed and ordained minister and over 15 years of church administration, where he created training curriculums and modules for leadership development, lecturing, and the development and institutionalization of the gospel choir in his hometown of Denmark. In 1993, Bishop-elect Troy moved to Atlanta, Georgia. While challenging both physically and spiritually, this move would ultimately birth wisdom and maturity in a boy who bore a manly call. Oh, come on now. He graduated from Southwest DeKalb High School in 1995 with honors. In 2001, he completed his Bachelor's of Arts program from Beulah Heights University, Atlanta, Georgia, as the class valedictorian. While at Beulah Heights, he began the Generation of Warriors Incorporated in 1996, a group of youth and young adults committed to providing holistic education and awareness to people of all ages, stages, and backgrounds. Enriched by the mandate to be an advocate of liberation to all, Bishop-elect Troy is equally grateful for his ministry of music. Yes, indeed. He completed a dual Master's of Divinity and Master's of Art degree at the Interdenominational Theological Center, Atlanta, Georgia in 2008. Bishop-elect Troy completed his clinical pastoral education residency as a chaplain at Emory University Hospital. He is currently completing the coursework and clinical residency as a therapist for his doctorate of theology and pastoral counseling from the Interdenominational Theological Center of Atlanta, Georgia. Bishop-elect Troy served as the first assistant pastor at the Victory for the World Church in Stone Mountain, Georgia, under the leadership of senior pastor Dr. Kenneth L. Samuel. He provided pastoral leadership, counseling, and leadership ministerial training and development for a diverse congregation of over 3,000 people. Bishop-elect Troy is the Episcopal liaison for the greater Atlanta area and serves the executive committee of the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries under the leadership of our great Bishop Yvette Flunder. An international movement of radical, inclusive religious organizations committed to promoting liberation and addressing pivotal issues regarding racial, social, and economic equity. Bishop-elect Troy remains committed to utilizing a model for ministry that marries pastoral care and counseling with a progressive, charismatic theological approach, combining a liberation theology undergirded by a pastoral care hermeneutic. Let us welcome Bishop-elect Troy. Come on through, Bishop.
Yes, hello, everyone. Good to be with you.
Yes. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now? I know I read your bio, but I know you're into some great things right now.
Reverend Victoria, it is always a pleasure. We go way back, and I'm sure that'll come up in our conversation tonight. It is a joy to be with you. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's interesting, as you were reading, I thought, wow, a lot has changed. First, on the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries front, which I honor and certainly pay honor and respect to our presiding bishop, Bishop Yvette Flunder. Since the time of the edits of that particular bio, I have been named as one of the newly appointed Episcopal assistants for our movement, the Fellowship of Affirming Ministries, serving very closely with our presiding bishop's office. And that particular assignment gives me responsibilities over all of our regional bishops, our new bishop elects in each of the regions, both in the United States and abroad, in the Caribbean, in South America, in Europe, in Asia, and on the continent of Africa. I'm excited about that. Amen. So that is going on the TFAM front. On the United Church of Christ front, just appointed as a board member for the Pathways to Theological Education program within the Southeast Conference of the United Church of Christ, which is the conference I'm a part of and have my credentials through. And that particular program is actually a para-church, college seminary program for those that would like to further their formal education in theological studies, but may not necessarily have access for any myriad of reasons to formal seminary training. It is the internal in-house training mechanism and module for the United Church of Christ in the Southeast region, teaching everything from polity. You can get your certificate program. You can also get credits that will lend itself towards CPE education. So I'm excited about that. And I am the very proud pastor. I love pastoring Rehoboth Fellowship of Atlanta United Church of Christ. We're now coming up on 6 years old. It was a new church plant 6 years ago. We took 13 months to do strategic planning, and the church is doing well. We just recently returned back to the building after 2 years, and I'm so excited. We'll get into that, I'm sure, but we have had a chance to reimagine what ministry looks like for us due to this pandemic. We are now in a studio broadcasting to over 20 to 30 platforms every single service, which is exciting to me. So it's been a long day for me today. Prayer started at 8 a.m. Then we had a service, got some working out in the middle of that, and then came on to be with you. So I'll end my day with you. What a joy it is to be with you. Thank you again for the invitation.
A long day, and what a joy it is to have you present here with our viewers on this evening. Well, again, like, tag, and share with any and everybody. Let people know that Bishop-elect Troy Sanders from Atlanta, Georgia is on. It's going to be a powerful conversation. This is a pastor extraordinaire, and we named this whole thing More Than a Overcomer. And so we're just glad to have this compelling, cutting edge church leader with us tonight. And so we're going to just go ahead and begin with our questions. And I'm quite sure Bishop is ready to engage in this conversation. So the first
Absolutely.
question I have is really like a long one. And I
Okay.
kind of start this question off by initiating the dialogue. And so there's kind of like two, three, four parts to it. Now, start out as it relates to leadership. How did you get here at this place in your life right now?
Ah, so the first thing that comes up, and we're gonna have fun, I'm sure. But
Yes.
I didn't take it to church, the Reverend Victoria, when you asked that question. What I heard was Deborah Cox's song, "How did you get here? Nobody's
Yes.
supposed to be here." And sure enough, I tried that church thing for the last time. It was a crisis of faith that actually set the stage for me to make a leap into what would become my reality. Didn't know it at the
Mm,
time. It was a crisis of faith around my own sexuality. Being raised in the Pentecostal South, in a very strict Pentecostal denomination, to have to come to grips with being a same gender loving Black man that has a call to preach and pastor and music ministry. Music ministry is not as controversial because the church can do something with musicians and singers that they're not necessarily quite ready at times to do with pastors and leaders, and all of that converging upon my educational studies just set the stage for me to not just answer the call to leadership, but answer the call to redefine leadership. And I think
mm.
that was the starting point. That I heard Dr. Gottman, when I got to seminary, says that your own healing actually calls you. And I never forgot that. So
Wow.
it was my own broken pieces. It was my own relationship with woundedness that I had to work out. The old folks say you work out your own soul salvation, right? And so salvation for me was not about getting to heaven. It was about getting through the hell on earth. And that hell on earth took many forms. And it was through that journey that I discovered a new me. I discovered a resilient me. I
Yeah.
discovered a resurrected, powerful me. And I'm still
Yes.
becoming. I am still becoming. And I'm grateful for that.
I love that. I love that you're still becoming. That is so unique. And I love how you said that your own healing called you, right? As you were healing, your own healing is what propelled you upward, right? And I love that. I love that. So the second part to this question is then, who are you? In essence, who am I? Kind of like identity kind of question. Who are you?
Mm. So I think that the question itself, I understand, and I certainly like the idea of being able to name myself. Audre Lorde says, if I don't define myself for myself, I'll be swallowed up holding other people's images of me,
Mm,
right? And so I appreciate at the forefront of this production or this particular show to be able to define myself for myself. And I think that if I had to answer, who am I today? Who am I in this space? Um, it takes me back, Reverend Victoria. And if I slip and call you Victoria, you can certainly call me Troy because we go back that far.
yeah, but
Um,
go ahead and slip and call me Victoria. I just put the Reverend up there tonight because I was dealing with the bishop.
you
Go
can
ahead and
slip
put
and call me
go
Troy
ahead
too.
and
So
put the
we'll go
Victoria.
ahead.
We go way
You
back.
if you call me Troy, I'll call you Victoria. We'll
All
do it
right,
that
you got
way.
a deal.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So I think the first thing for me is, who am I? Who I am. I am me, and I am evolving in my meanness, separate and apart from my what I do. So what I hear in that question is, who I am is very different than what I do. And
Mm,
who I am is that I'm a kid at heart, to be honest.
yes.
I enjoy roller coasters and I ride them twice, once on the front seat and once on the back seat, because I like the drag of both. I'm an entrepreneur. My old pastor, I'll give a shout out to her, Dr. Sherry Gaither, told me early on in my walk, said, you are far too gifted to have only one stream of income. You will do yourself a disservice without having multiple streams of income. So I consider myself to be an entrepreneur, investing in multiple ways to make money and to become and to produce. I want to produce perpetual wealth. And so I'm thankful for that. So that's who I am. I am certainly a mama's boy. No question about that. I love my mamas. I love mamas so much until God had to give me two of them. And I'm thankful for that. My biological mother and my aunt, who is my mother by choice, I love both of them dearly. They have been the wind, not just beneath my wings, but underneath, around, through and through. So I'm that. Um, and I absolutely love movies. I buy a year pass to the movie theater so I can go to the movies as often as I want to for free. I love movies. So all of those things make me who I am. But more importantly for me, I am comfortable in my own skin, Victoria. And I'm thankful for that. It may not be okay with everybody else, but it sure is okay with me.
Yes, yes. And I know you are comfortable in your own skin. When we met in the 90s, and I love that you talked about your pastor, which was one of my mentors at the time, Sherry Gaither. And boy, I tell you, she will put it to you, right? She will
Yes,
put it straight
Lord.
to you. I
Yes,
love her for
Lord.
that, and I love her for who she was in my life at the time. But I remember in the 90s, you know, you called me and you said, listen, we got to do something. We got to do something. We got to free the people. We got to free the people, right? And we got to get something out there. And you did just that. You did just that. And it was me really trailing behind you. And how are you going to do it, right? And so as I started seeing, you started inspiring me so much. So I'm glad that you named who you were for yourself rather than other people having images of who you are, because people will do that.
Oh,
So
yeah.
now that you really have told us who you are, then tell me, why are you here, and
Mm.
where are you going? In essence, how are you trending forward personally and professionally?
I see. So the why am I here is probably an easier question than the where am I going. The
Okay.
why I am here is because I have learned to find beauty in my scars and to
Mm,
celebrate my struggle. And I'm thankful for all of my journey. The good, the bad, the ugly. We sing it, we say it, but I don't know how much many of us are able to really sit in it. And I'm thankful for that. So I am here because I understand that all these things. We just lost a giant in the music industry, LaShawn Pace, but one of her songs says, "If I was in control of my life, I think that I would have worked things out differently. There would be no hurt, no pain, no disappointment. Of these things, my life would be scot free." But the second part of that verse says, that just goes to show how little I know about leading, about controlling my life. For all of these things have worked together just to make the best of me. And so I'm here because I am the sum total of both my successes and my failures,
mm.
my scars and my wounds, my scars and my healed parts. I am here because I celebrate all of those things. Where I'm going, the truth of the matter is, I have absolutely no clue. And I am okay with that.
I love that answer.
I am okay. I don't have no clue. I am on a journey, Victoria, and I'm enjoying every minute of it because it is not the destination that's important to me. It is being able to celebrate the journey. So, whatever spirit wants to do, whatever the divine, whatever the ancestors want to use me for, whatever all of those powerful forces of our African indigenous retentions that
Come
I
on
now
now.
incorporate in my Pentecostal religious practices. Whatever they want to do with me, I'm saying yes, and I'm okay with it.
All right. I love that. I love that. You are the sum total of all your that which you possess, be it failure, be it trending forward and manifestation of whatever God has blessed you with. I love the fact that you say you find the beauty in your scars. Ooh, I love that. Listen, I tell everybody, I'm gonna give you credit once, and right now I'm giving you the credit. I give you
I
more
feel
credit
you.
after
I
that.
feel you. I feel you.
Okay, Troy, can you talk about, we started this whole thing, and when I invited you to be a part of the show, when I heard your testimony some time ago on your anniversary at your church, and I watched your show, not your show, but your church program, and I heard you, and this thing that comes to me is that you are more than an overcomer. We know that we say that in the Bible, but what does it mean for you? What does it mean for you to be more than a overcomer?
Absolutely. Well, I am working up this September will be 6 years of sobriety for me, and I am
Mm,
thankful for that. I'm thankful for the gift of sobriety. I didn't realize how much of a gift sobriety was for someone like me until I got sober. And I'm thankful for that. Unfortunately, church folk will drive you to drink. That's a reality. It ain't just a saying. I grew up in the Pentecostal church, so I didn't start drinking until late in life, because it was shunned upon. And I now since have come to better appreciate some of the reasons why they told us to stay away from certain things, right? Not because they are wrong in and of themselves, but I think for me, because I didn't have a healthy relationship with it and there was something broken, that I needed to be able to name and be able to deal with around addiction. And so for me, as I started to pastor, I quickly realized through the help of a powerful support system that included my biological family, my adopted family, family of choice, and my spiritual leadership, that there were some changes. If I wanted to stay on this earth for a long time and do this work for a long time, I had to get healthy. I had to get more healthy than I was. And so I made a decision. And through the help of recovery programs, I was able to attain sobriety and maintain it going on 6 years now. And I am so appreciative. I'm thankful for that. I had to look at my relationship with food and my relationship with other unhealthy choices in my life and decide, is this the best me that I can be? And is this the
Mm.
me that I want to be remembered as? And if that is okay, then keep doing what I'm doing. If that's not okay, then I got to make some different choices, right? And so it's all about choices. And so I'm thankful. I'm not minimizing the power of choice and the need to make different choices, but I stand as an overcomer. I am an overcomer. I'm victorious, not just because the scripture says it. I'm victorious because I come from a long line of victorious Black folk who made it through a transatlantic journey, who
Mm.
made themselves into something when the odds were against them, and that blood flows through me. So if I can
Yes.
connect with the divine and the divine ancestry DNA that I have, I can overcome anything.
Oh, wow. This is so powerful, so powerful. And thank you so much for being so transparent about the sobriety, because there's a lot of leaders that will not be as transparent, and they need to be, because this is not an easy journey. And I'm glad you name it. And that thing is addiction. It could be any form of addiction, not just to alcohol. It could be to drugs, prescription drugs. It could be to sex. It could be to getting into,
It can be to church and religion.
yes,
Karl Marx says religion
yes.
is the opiate of the people.
And I was
And
just
if
about
the
to name that.
world, I'm sorry, if the world is dealing with the residue of having opioid addictions, then the church certainly should have some anti-spiritual opioid addiction processes.
Yes. Yoo-hoo, you naming that thing. Because I was about to say this whole addiction to church, man, what church looks like and what we've been taught church look like, being church 7 days a week, all day long, and that's holy.
Yeah.
And so we have to reframe that, because that's a form of addiction that leads to, you know, wounds, right? And so thank you for naming that and being very honest about your sobriety, and congratulations to
Thank
you. I
you.
am so glad that you named it, but I also want to congratulate you. I've been knowing you for a very long time, and I did not know that you dealt with that. And so thank you for naming that. So talk to us about some of the ways in which you had to reinvent yourself. What did that look like between pre and post pandemic?
So I think for me, the pandemic was difficult in a very different type of way for me. I was blessed to be able to go through the pandemic. Me and my family shared space together, so we were not isolated physically. That was a great joy. But there
Mm,
was so much death and so much pain and hurt all around me, and to have to still minister at the height of the pandemic, I was doing funerals, Victoria, to the degree that because most of the congregations or the funeral homes here, their staff chaplains were older and could not get out. And so at some point, I was doing funerals 2 to 3 times a week. And I would be at the graveside with the body, and the family members would be in their cars listening on phones, or not
mm,
even at the car, actually looking on Facebook or YouTube. And my CPE education really did prepare me to be able to be present and to sit with people in their grief and their pain. I've told my church for many years before the pandemic that I felt called to help people die well. I
Mm,
didn't realize, but that is a calling from God.
yes.
And I'm thankful for that, because it is that call that helped me to see my purpose and my value during this god awful pandemic. Church wise, everything changed. I was like every other preacher and pastor, learning things as I go. What the blessing was is that I've always had a sense of curiosity and inquisitiveness around technology. And when we did our church plant, we put a strong infrastructure in place for virtual ministry. For 6 years, we've been having a virtual prayer call at 8 o'clock every Sunday morning, because we have 3 o'clock service. But because we have 3 o'clock service in a city like Atlanta, and our target audience is all of God's people, but God has given me LGBTQI people and their allies and family members. We competed with the park, with Piedmont Park, every weekend, doing the good, every Sunday afternoon, doing the good seat, the spring and the summer. So I was clear that I was called to pastor people who probably weren't going to be in nobody's church every single week. And so, in order to embrace that and to lean into that, we created a strong infrastructure that catered to a lot of our following through YouTube, Facebook, and all of those platforms, so that those things really did commute very easily into this pandemic world. And so I think that was ministry wise how things uncovered for me. But personally, I don't think I've ever in my life felt so unsure about anything. Like, we all were taking it day by day. And at one point, I work from home. I have a full-time job because I believe in working. I like money. And I don't believe the church ought to be taking care of me, right? So I want to be able to help ministry. So I work a full-time job. I was working from home, preaching from home, living at home, and then watching TV. And so I said, I got to do something to get out this house. So during the pandemic, I came up with two new hobbies that would give me a sense of escape. One
Yes.
was I came up with gardening. So I tried my finger at planting and growing trees. And that went pretty well until I tried an orange tree, but that's a whole nother story, Victoria. I couldn't grow no orange tree. But my peace lilies are doing wonderful, and I'm grateful for that. But the other thing that I realized, Victoria, is I had a passion and an affinity for drones. I started
Mm,
flying drones. Drones gave me a sense of escape, right? Because my first drone in my fleet went high, but it didn't go high enough. So I got the real high drones that go like planes. You have to get an FAA license. But what I found is that it was safe. I could do it by myself, but it gave me a purview that was above my reality. And so
mm.
when I go up in a drone, I actually get to experience the world. I get to experience my surroundings. I get to experience my reality from a different vantage point. It took me higher than I ever been before. You can tell I'm a singer because I just went higher and higher and higher. And I enjoyed that. I have joy. I would have known that if it had not been for the pandemic. And then lastly, I'll say that the pandemic created the perfect opportunity to reinvent not just myself, because it was during the pandemic that I made some decisions around my health and wellness. I had a heart attack for the very first time over 11 years ago while doing ministry. I was at our sister church in New York, Rivers. That's why the New York church is so near and dear to my heart. I was there. Bishop-elect Tolton, or Bishop Tolton, was the pastor of Rehoboth. At that time, they have since joined and become Rivers at Rehoboth, which is under the leadership, the capable leadership of my sister, Bishop-elect Vanessa Brown. Amen. But I remember during that time, he was going to Africa, interestingly, for one of his first trips, and had asked me, Troy, would you please come? It was during November, and I was like, Tolton, I don't want to get snowed in New York because
You
I ain't
will.
used to all that. So I said, the only way I'm gonna come, Tolton, is if you in Africa fly me up on Saturday, and then I want to go back home Sunday right after church, right? Little did I know, I woke up that morning to having a heart attack right here in Atlanta. Did not know it, and flew to New York, still having a heart attack. Interestingly, all of this I found out later. It was when I laid down the night before that. I woke up first thing in the morning to what felt like bricks sitting on my chest. Long story short, they rushed me to the emergency room, and I stayed in New York for over 2 weeks because I had a massive heart attack, and they had to put several stents in my heart. And that was started. I didn't know whether I would live or die. The truth is, I was having arrhythmias, and they had me in CCU, had called my family and told them, if you want to see him alive, you need to get here. That's been over 12 years, probably
I remember that.
between 10 to 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful to God because there was an Indian lady, and I only say Indian for the perspective of her relationship to me and what she did for me. I did not know at the time she was one of the technicians. She said, I Googled your name and I found the church you are part of in Atlanta. She said, my husband is a pastor. Her name was Mary. She came in my room at about 5 a.m. that morning. I was sitting, they had my heart was so unstable until they had a crash cart near my bed and a nurse on duty for me in the critical care unit. She came in and she said, I don't know you. She said, but God sent me to tell you that this is not your end and God will heal you and raise you up. She said, you're not out of the water. She said, and when you get back to Atlanta, you need to find a cardiologist quick. She said, but I want you to know that not only will God heal you, she said, but God's going to bring you up and you won't even look like what you've been through. She said, you should have been dead. She said, anybody having a heart attack, and my physicians told me after that, and the pressure could have crushed your heart, could have killed you instantly. She said, you woke up having a heart attack. She said, most people who have these kinds of heart attacks die in their sleep. And Victoria, on that bed, that hospital bed, it wasn't questions of my sexuality that plagued me. It wasn't questions of, am I satisfied? Am I right with God? That wasn't it. The question was, have I done everything I'm supposed to do before I leave here? And the only thing that I could think in my natural mind that I had not said yes to was pastoring. I did not want to pastor. I told Bishop Flunder, I did not want to pastor. I just did not. I saw what y'all do to pastors, the church do to pastors, and I didn't want no part of it. I would be a wingman. I would be the best second person ever, but I did not want to pastor. I told God, if you lift me from this table and you heal my body, because I don't know no other way but to give it all I got. I don't know no other way but to preach the way I have been known to preach. I say, I can't do this half-hearted preaching. I need you to heal me in a way that I can holler like I'm used to and not be scared. If you do that, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And here I am 11 years later. So it was during the pandemic that I got back in touch with that yes. And that next part of the yes was, if COVID didn't take me out, then I certainly wasn't going to let what I put in my mouth through food take me out, or my lack of commitment to self-care and exercise take me out. So I made some choices again during the pandemic. And I told the church 2 years ago, when we celebrated our anniversary in November, I said, I have helped to build infrastructure. Give me a year, and I want to focus on my own health and well-being. Give me a year to position myself to do better by me. Just so happened we were in the pandemic, and I'm thankful for that. I rediscovered a passion for working out, for eating well. I work out 7 days a week. I'm at the gym every morning between 6 a.m. and 6:30. I've lost over 90 pounds. I'm thankful to God. I feel like a kid again, and I am
Yes.
grateful. So those are the ways in which the pandemic set the stage for me to reinvent myself.
I appreciate, you just have, I told you while we were waiting backstage, you just have so many testimonies. I've been knowing you since the 90s, and you have so many testimonies. We're so interconnected in a lot of ways. And I do remember the time, being a part of the fellowship when we were all just praying and praying and praying, and my heart went out because I couldn't get to you, right? I knew you had the saints already there, but I just wanted to get to you because I knew you right that deeply. And I like, I forgot her name. Her name escapes me. Oprah just did an interview with her. Davis is the last name, and it's on Netflix. And she says, if you heal me, you can have me. And when you were sharing your story, that's exactly what I heard. If you heal me, you can have me in the pastoring realm. You were doing everything else, but you can have me in the pastoring realm. Thank you. Powerful story. And I love how you talk about how the pandemic helped you, even post-pandemic, to reposition yourself, right? And so I like that. But we're going to discuss drones. I'm like, Drones, that is,
Don't knock it till you try it. I'm
I
telling, it's
know it, right? I might have
amazing.
to try it.
And there's a whole drone, you know, they have drone conventions and they have YouTube channel for drones. And I mean, it is a hobby. You to learn what your batteries do and what wings you need and what camera lenses you use to
Lord
get
have
best
mercy.
pictures. I've gotten into production. I produce movies from different vantage points. I'm telling you, like this pandemic don't owe me nothing. I decided I was not gonna sit around and wait for death to happen. I was
That's
gonna
right.
find me something to do that
That's
was
right.
healthy and
That's right.
holistic to make it through the free my and turn CNN off. At that point, I was in overload. I gave myself a limit of how many hours a day I could watch it, and then after that, I couldn't let it get into my soul because
Yes,
it was affecting my dreams. Like I was
it
dreaming
was.
about the pandemic and riots, and I was in it every day. I needed something different, and so drones gave me an escape.
Thank you, and thank you for not just sitting idly by. And that's something that leaders need to hear, even in this post-pandemic. As we are, I mean, the shift has happened, and as we are learning to reposition ourselves and reimagine what it means for us to be, and becoming, then, don't be okay with just idly sitting by. Do something that will keep your mind regulated, right? This is why I do leadership on the go, and I love it. I just love it. And so let's keep on moving. Thank you so much for that. I really, really, really listen. Everything that you have said, I've heard a lot of testimony, and we know, and you and I both know, this church work and this work period, of reimagining and reinventing ourselves comes with a cost. Share with us how you navigated disappointment in yourself and in
Mm,
others.
wow, wow, what a rich question. I think doing my own work helped me to that process, right? Number one, having a therapist,
Yes,
seeing that therapist regularly, and not making other people responsible for my own emotional work. What I was
yes,
clear about is that I could not bleed on the people. If I didn't do my work, then I would make the church, the congregation, the ministers, the deacons, the members responsible for stuff that had nothing to do with them. I had to do my own work. And I'm thankful for that, because I do see it as my work and I see it as separate and apart from the call to do church work and ministry work. So disappointment has always been a trigger for me. Disappointment as a kid. My grandmother was raised by my grandmother, and my grandmother was adamant about, baby, I ain't gonna tell you I'm gonna do something if I can't do it. I ain't gonna lie to you. And she would say, I'll see first before she said I would do, because if she said I'm gonna do it, I could bet my last dollar. The problem with that is that that creates a worldview as a child that everybody is that way. And that is not the case. That is not even the norm in most of our circles, right?
right.
People can only do what they are able to do. And sometimes they don't know they're able to do it until they can't do it. And they don't want to come back and say they can't do it. So disappointment was a hard pill to swallow. But what was helpful for me is not making people responsible for anything that I had within my power to do. So as a church, my hermeneutic is not to do as I say, but to do as I do. So if I asked members to give, I needed to join and lead the line in giving. If I asked the members to meet me, to this day, I get to the church what is about an hour and 30 minutes before our service starts, so I can help with getting chairs together. I can help with putting up with electronic backgrounds. So when we meet, I'm working too. It's not a place for someone to serve me. Throughout the fellowship, I can't count on both hands all of the jobs I've had in TFAM with Bishop Flunder, because for me, it was about always being found doing and not necessarily being found with somebody trying to do for me. And so
Yes,
I think a part of me navigating disappointment was realizing that if I can do what I can do, then I can hope that people can do what they can do, but not to have unrealistic expectations, and to be a safe place where people can say, hey, Pastor, I can't do that. And me not retaliate negatively against that. Not just I can't do that, but my brother and my friend Maurice Cook, who's my graphic designer as well, and certainly a brother indeed, is often reminding me no is a whole sentence. It
yes.
don't need no qualifications. It don't need no justifications. No is no. And so to be able to honor people when they say no, disappointment Here is what I remember. One of the mothers of our church who went home to be with the Lord, Sister Erica Scruggs' mama, I speak her name, Mother Carolyn Gilliam, said to me, is that unrealistic expectations is what gives birth to disappointment. And I
Mm,
never forgot that. Never forgot that. The truth is, if I don't have expectations on people, folk can't disappoint me.
right.
And so
That's
my
good.
expectation is to put on myself. And when I put that on myself, I can manage that. Anything else above and beyond that, I can't manage.
Yeah, I've always learned that expectations kill. I think we confuse expectations though with some reality truths though. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
expectations definitely kills. Thank
And
you for
know the
that.
difference between expectations and boundaries. We all need boundaries.
Yes. Talk more about
Boundaries are
boundaries. Talk more about that.
boundaries is about knowing my limitations and knowing my ability and not allowing others to pull me into spaces and places that I am not qualified to be. It is not safe for me to be. It is not effective for me to be. Those are boundaries. That's important. Expectations are what I put onto you, project onto you that you should be doing for me, and if you didn't co-sign on that, I can't hold you accountable to it. And even if you say you're going to do it, I still need to take it with a grain of salt because you are human. And humanity lends itself to limitations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that. That is very good. I like the spin that you have on the difference between boundaries and expectations. So, can you share a painful experience that took you from trial to triumph? I know you just shared your testimony about the heart attack and et cetera, but can you think of a painful experience outside of illness that led you from trial to triumph?
Mm. Can I think is not the question of which one do I want to pick of all the ones that come to mind. I mean, I just it's so many of them. I probably would have to connect with the latest major tragedy. I've had two major losses during this pandemic, and they were trials. One is of my brother and my friend, Pastor Pierre Dixon Cox. To walk with him through his journey of his last days, Pastor Pierre had been struggling with for several years and had several bouts. And during the last round, he asked me, "Would you mind being my medical power of attorney?" And I
Mm,
said, Pastor Pierre, you have family. Long story short, he said, but I trust you. And I had the chance to walk with him to the point of death, literally. Um, I don't know that there was another brother, pastor friend that was closer to me than Pastor Pierre. We talked
mm,
every Tuesday, and we would not get off the phone with just saying how you doing and saying I'm fine. We could not check in with I'm fine. He forced us to have hard conversations, and I'm thankful for his life and his witness. That was hard for me to watch him suffer, being a strong man of faith, but also having to sit with the realities that his faith could not change his current situation, and to
mm.
sit in the pain with him. I remember sometimes I would wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to him calling me and saying, "Troy, when am I going to die?" Said, "I'm
Mm.
tired."
Wow.
And to have to do something with my own desire for him to stay and embrace the fact that he was ready to go. That was hard. And then the last thing was the transition of Bishop Wyatt Greenlee.
Yes. I
I
know
will
y'all were really close.
forever speak his name. Bishop Greenlee, when Bishop Greenlee came to visit me, Bishop Greenlee stayed in my house, and he and my mother would have coffee in the morning together. And Bishop Greenlee was a part of my family. I love Bishop Greenlee. Um, Partly because he saw something, he and Bishop Flunders saw something in me 20 years ago that I just could not see in myself. And he treated me like a son.
Mm.
I mean, everywhere we went, he treated me like a son. And I remember, long story short, I know we are on limited time, but the power of his transition. The truth is, he had been on my mind, and I told my mother we went to South Carolina for Christmas last year, and I told my mother, I said, I got to go see Bishop Greenlee. And she said, Troy, the pandemic is still going on. I said, no, but I got to put my eyes on him. Something ain't right. And literally I came back to Atlanta. Christmas Day was Saturday. I came back to Atlanta, preached at the church, and got on a plane Sunday night to go see Bishop Greenlee. So I'm just spent a few days with him. And we laughed and talked. And literally, I did not realize again that the call to help people die well was at work. We
Mm,
spent the last days of his life together. He talked and we laughed and we shared. I flew back Wednesday night to Atlanta. Thursday morning, they found him dead in his sleep, less
mm.
than 24 hours after I got back. What I do
Wow.
believe is that some of the things Bishop Greenlee shared with me in private about what he saw for my life, his death opened up the way for those things to come to pass. I believe in the spiritual principle that says, except a grain of corn fall to the ground and die, it abides alone. I'll take you back real quick to that heart attack, Victoria. I remember when I got back to Atlanta, the first night I was here, I could not sleep. I felt death walking in my house. My mother
Mm,
and my uncle had taken me and said, you got to stay with us until you get better. Long story short, the next day, my uncle died accidentally while working on the car in that same house. So the death I felt that night before that, I could not sleep right after getting back, was not for me. It was for my uncle, who was like a father to me. He
wow.
died. So within 2 weeks, I had a massive heart attack until having to plan a funeral for my uncle. I believe his death did the same thing that Bishop Green did. His death opened up the way for me to be able to go back to school,
Mm,
to envision planting this church. All his death opened up all of that. And so those are examples for me, living, breathing, tender examples. Pastor Pierre's death, I believe with everything in me, he's fighting for me. Things that he said that I see coming to pass now. Those deaths were tragedy, but they opened the way for triumph that I'm still experiencing and is still unveiling in my life.
and as it's unveiling, something is unveiling, before me, as you mentioned about death opened up opportunities, right? We always see death as a challenge, but it opened up opportunities, and it could be a death to anything, a death to ministry, a death to a particular thing. But you just named and framed that for us, that death opens up opportunities if you are tuned in to the spiritual matters of God. And
I
so thank
remember
you
the
for
first
sharing that.
time, Victoria, I sat down with Bishop Flunder and Mother Miller. I was a
Mhm.
member of the Vision Church of Atlanta, and that's how I met Bishop Flunder's mom, Mother Ruth Langston. She came to do our first revival, and I was responsible for taking her around. She said, have you ever met my daughter? I said, I've heard her name. She said, oh, you need to meet her. I said, I don't, I had no access, no idea. She said, I'll take care of it. She went back to California. And a few days later, I got a number from someone, 415. And I thought, who is this? I answered the phone and she said, this is Yvette Flunder. My mother says we need to meet. And I dropped the phone. I was like, the Yvette Flunder on my phone. This has been over 20 years ago. And it wasn't long after that Mother Langston made her transition to glory.
Mm.
However, what she did do before she died was connected the two. And I remember sitting down at Emory Conference Center. Long story short, Bishop Flunder looked at me. She said, what do you want to do in ministry? I said, I don't want to do nothing. I said, I want to do a thing. I said, the church hurt me and now it has died. Here's what Bishop Flunder told me over 20 years ago, Victoria. She said, it had to die. She said,
Mm.
because if it did not die, God could not raise it in resurrection power.
Ooh, that's
She said,
powerful.
and
Yes.
everything you lost over 20 years ago, she told me that everything you lost, God will give it to you more and you'll walk in integrity with it. She said, you will preach again. I stopped preaching and every word she spoke came to pass.
Yes,
So
I
I know
believe it.
about
I
that
believe
life
it.
through death. I preached about it today. Acts chapter 1, verse 3. Can't y'all tell I'm enjoying Victoria? Acts chapter 1, verse 3 says, and after this, Jesus showed himself after his passion. Right there in the text is an oxymoron, life after death.
Yes.
Infallible proofs Jesus showed because he decided to live after dying.
Yes.
Life after death is powerful.
It
You
really,
ain't ready
really
to
is.
live until you had a death.
That's
Until
right.
it's died, it ain't really alive.
Boy, you up in here preaching. I'm gonna go to the next question because you about to make me shout.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I know I'm talking to a preacher here. Listen, I've been knowing you for a while. I know I'm talking to a preacher. And I love the story and how you perpetually keep showing how opportunity comes after death. I need all the leaders out there to hear that opportunity always happens after death. Failure, opportunity is happening. Death, opportunity is happening. Stuck, opportunity is happening. You got to see it through the lens of the Holy Spirit. All right,
Yes.
and so let's keep on moving here. This is good. This is good. Troy, can you tell me what inspires you?
So can I twist the question a little bit and say who inspires me? And then I'll
You
tell
can
you what
twist whatever
inspires
you
me.
want to.
Okay, all right. So who inspires me is India Ari because I believe she's God's prophet. Who inspires me is Jill Scott because I believe she's God's prophet.
Oh,
Who
I love me some
inspires me?
Jill.
I'm trying to tell you,
I
John
love me some
Legend
Jill.
inspires me. I'm telling you, Yeva inspires me. So music inspires me.
Yes.
Family inspires me. I come from a close-knit family. And I can't tell you where I would be if it wasn't for my family, not just biological family, but family of choice. I'm thankful for that. Authenticity inspires me.
Yes.
The truth is, and my church knows that I am not looking for cookie cutter answers or cookie cutter people. But if
Right.
you have the courage to be unique and authentic, you got a fan in me. I'll go with you because it takes courage to be authentic. Authenticity inspires me. So that's who inspires me and the what inspires me. Doing fulfilling passion inspires me. Being
Yes.
able to laugh, not just that cute laugh, but I'm talking about that gut chuckle. If you've ever been in my presence, I love to laugh.
Yeah,
That
well, I know.
inspires me. God Almighty, I enjoy having fun
I
because
know.
life's too serious and too short not to.
And and I'm excited about you lifting that up because sometimes we get so into ourselves, we're so serious all the time that we don't know how to smile, we don't know how to laugh, we don't know how to bring the little girl, little boy, or little person up in us, that the age that you were where you will always be. You always are going to have that 5-year-old in you. You're always going to have that 10-year-old in you, and it's going to come out at some point, right? And
Yeah.
it's okay, right? And so I love to have fun too. And thank you for framing that for us and naming who inspires you, and you name some of my favorites, right? So
Woo-wee.
listen. I know what inspires you. You kind of twisted my next question, but I'm still going to ask it out there. Who motivates you as a leader? Who
Ah,
motivates you as a leader?
so I think our presiding bishop motivates me. I've had a
Yes.
chance to watch her from first row seating. I've watched the behind the scenes her, and I've watched her in and out of the country. She inspires me. One of the reasons she inspires me is because Bishop Flunder is certainly a master at pulling others along with her when she's
Yes.
going into a place up. We were at the big rally in DC and all of these big names. I'm talking about Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and all of them. And we were at the march and we had gone with her. And I'm sure all of you who know Bishop Flunder know that I'm telling the truth. And it ain't but a one-time story. And they said, Bishop Flunder, you can only come back here. Only you can come and one of your assistants. And she said, oh no, that won't work. It was like 10
Right.
or 12 of us. I mean,
Right.
we were deep. We were riding deep. And she said, that ain't gonna work. And the people was like, well, Bishop, you can't have all these people back here. She said, yes, I can. She said, these are my folk. And if I'm going in there, you're going to. So they said, well, they don't have tags. She said, I'll fix that. So she went around saying, do you need all your tags? Nope, you don't need your, give me your tags. Because I got real, I need tags. And we all ended up back there with her. And that's inspiring to me. So many
Absolutely.
leaders, after they reached a certain point, will do whatever they can to distance themselves from their people. We have a leader who will do whatever she can to continue to stay connected in whatever way she can to her people. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for that example. I try to live that out every single day. There is absolutely nowhere I go that if I don't see my folks that I'm saying one moment, let me go holler at her. Let me go speak to them because they're my folk. Them are folk.
Right,
And
right,
so
right.
that's who inspires me as leadership. People like you. And I don't just say that, but people who continue to hear the call, keep their ear to the ground, right? And do innovative ministry in these type of times. That's inspiring to me. We get
All
to write,
right.
we are writing the third testament of the Bible. That's
Yes.
inspiring.
Yes, I tell people when I was pastoring, I tell people the Bible is not finished. Stop
It
trying to
ain't
close the
finished.
Bible or the book at Revelations. God is still revealing some stuff, right? And
UCC
so
says God is still speaking.
that's right.
And the mouthpiece that God often uses are people like marginalized people like you and I, who they
Yes.
said had no seat at the table, but God made room for us. What a
And I think
blessing. That
about in
inspires me.
1999 when you said, we got to create something. We got to create space for us. This is just, and we were, at ITC at the time or at Beulah. I can't remember.
Beulah. We're at
Beulah.
Beulah.
Yes, Beulah. And I was like, okay. I was like, on
And
board,
that was earlier than 99 because I graduated from high school in 95 and I went to Beulah a semester after that. So I started at Beulah in 1996, late 96. So that I would venture to say that was probably Victoria around 97,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Yep.
was it was powerful, and I was like, okay, but I didn't know I had no clue because I wasn't out as much as you were or connected at that time because I was being closeted. So I just thank God for the path that you created for a
Thank
whole
you.
lot of people. Thank you for that. And so let's continue. You are
Okay.
you are Troy. You are really really known, and since I've been knowing you for creating space that is very progressive. Talk to us about what it looks like. What does progression or progressive ministry look like post pandemic?
Ah, great question. So one of the things that we had to learn quickly, as every other pastor and leader that's on here, I know that you've had to learn it too, is how to lean into these technological challenges that we've had. Challenges with audio, challenges is what platform we're going to use virtually, how to get church out from the house. And so all of these challenges, right? One of the things that happened that was a major shift is that we've always rented space because we have afternoon worship. And as a congregation, it was important to me that we build a nest egg of wealth so that we were able to get through our lean years versus invest all of our revenue into a building or something that we could not afford in and of ourselves and by ourselves as a young church. And we wanted to buy, but I'm so thankful to God. We were about almost buying right when the pandemic started. I cannot imagine what would have happened if we would have owned property during the pandemic, being a young church. Long story short, the church that we rented from to increase their revenue decided to change their worship space into a studio and state of the art studio, high tech studio. People like Lil
It
Kim
is. I
and
love it.
Snoop Dogg and all of them
Yes.
were using the space to make videos out of because, again, it was revenue generating, which I didn't have a problem with at all. But because we were under lease with that space, when they approached us, I said, oh, this could be something. This could be an opportunity for us. Why? Because no church, if they are wise, will ever go back to anything that does not have a virtual leg to it. So, what we did was we came up with a way to make church happen in a digital studio space. And I'm telling you, we are having fun. Here's what people don't see. They see the finished product. But what people don't see is it takes 8 to 10 people behind the scenes, be it camera crew, be it people who are working lighting, people who are working LED boards, people who are working other digital components, people that behind, and none of them went to school for this. We all learned this. And Victoria, I was the first one to say, teach me this. I learned it all during the pandemic. Why? Because I wanted to be able to do one as a pastor, a good pastor learns early. Don't ever let nobody put you over a barrel because when they put you over a barrel, they can twist your arm however they choose. No, if you know how to do it, I'm going to know how to do it. And I'm
Right.
going to teach somebody else how to do it so that when you act out and don't show up, it'll still get done. If I'm not there, it will get done, right? And so in the midst of all of that, we had to reimagine what worship would look like. And while some people had real challenge around it, it doesn't feel like sacred space to me. My challenge was, what is sacred space?
Mm.
Sacred space in a pandemic is being able to get a signal out to Facebook and YouTube in a state of the art way. Now we can zoom in any speaker from anywhere in the world, and they can literally be a part of our worship, all because we leaned in to the challenge rather than resist change. So our church doesn't have pews, our church don't have no baptism pool, but we got LED screens, and we got the ability to be able to partner with other platforms. We got the ability to be able to do virtual worship in a digital space, and it has that. Some of y'all remember that TBN feel where you can be in studio but still feel like you in worship. But it also gives us a chance to reimagine what worship will look like, to salvage or to spare, to save the salvageable parts. And we did that as a church, partly because we had done strategic planning before. So as a church, we met every Wednesday during the pandemic. And as we were getting toward re-entering, we started asking questions. What part of worship is sacred to you? What part of
Mm.
worship can you do without?
That's good.
How can we reinvent the space to contour to the needs of the people? And now we have deacons in different countries and different states. We have members in different states. Now, even reinvent what membership looks like, right? Because you
Yes.
ain't got to be local to be a member. We all know that because our people that have been supporting our ministries, some of them call me pastor and they never walked in to our building ever before. So all of that was the ways in which we had to lean in. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for my desire, my hunger for technology, because I believe technology can marry ministry and we can do it in a way that has not been seen before. And so I'm continuing to keep my ear to the ground. How do we make this work? Before the pandemic, we had what called Wind Down Wednesdays as an alternative to midweek worship, where we just sat around at a coffee table and sipped on some tea and talked about hot topics. All of these things now, people are integrating into their ministries. It is the one who thinks outside of the box that will be successful. And we found that success is not measured in numbers, because there are some big churches who lost buildings during the pandemic.
Absolutely.
There are some churches who will never see the numbers that they saw before the pandemic. But you better
Absolutely.
believe you can be effective even if you're small in number.
That's right. Effective, even if you're small in number. And I like, let's just frame this whole thing as you have to have integration. Church leaders, you have to have integration. And this
Can
whole
I
even
say
this,
this too? Can I
yeah,
say this too? I'm sorry. Integration, but you can't have integration first without imagination.
that's right. That's right. You got
You
to
got to be
reimagine.
able to see it. You got to imagine it before you can integrate it. And some of us are stuck because we don't have the gift of imagine. We lost that as children. So we got to imagine it first. It can be different.
Absolutely. And this whole notion around, because I hear a lot of pastors talking about how their church grew during the pandemic virtually. And this whole notion of members versus friends of the church or versus acquaintances of the church or versus partners. A lot of churches are going to partners of the church. And so, we have to rethink, because one person told me, I don't like being a member of nobody's church because it seems like I'm in a Christian gang. And so, you just have to reimagine but she loved belonging to the church she goes to, but she don't like to be called a member, but she's faithful, right? And so that's her mindset. She don't want to feel like she belongs to a gang. So we have to reimagine and integrate. So you kind of already hit on it. What advice do you have for leaders who might be stuck or at a turning point in their life?
So leaders, parish leaders, or just leaders in general?
However you want to frame it. I say leaders
Uh,
in general, but if you want to go
okay.
to,
No.
okay.
I'm fine. So I think that for me, my theology or my hermeneutic is that we all are leaders, in the sense that
Mhm.
I believe that everybody is a leader. And when
Absolutely.
we
We on the same.
engage people
Yes.
as leaders, then we get something different. We don't get commodity out of them, but commonality. So you're not my commodity, but when we brainstorm together, we can find commonality. And so I think that the first thing for me, what advice, I'm not sure. I don't even feel qualified oftentimes because I'm still growing and becoming myself. 6 years old as a pastor, I've been in ministry for 34 years. I've been preaching for 34 years. I started preaching when I was 11, 12. I was formally licensed at 15. I'm now 44. This is my 45th year on the earth. So I've been preaching for a while. What I realized though is that if you are so married to what is, you will never fall in love with what will be.
Mm, mm. I love
And
that.
at some point, you have to stop being married to wear what is like a loose fitting garment because it's subject to change at any time. And if you mesh your identity with your vocation, if your vocation changes, you will be identityless. Who am I is not the same as what I'm called to do.
Yes.
And I think if we get back in touch with who am I, when
Yes.
our what we're called to do shifts, it will not uproot the who we are. And I think for every leader, let what motivates you in ministry be who you are, not what you do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was a learning lesson for me because I'm third generation preacher in my family and pastor, and I had to learn that because my grandmother and my father were just staunch into it being about you know what you do is really who you are, and I'm like, no, 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 because the people can't see. If you
Yeah.
just stuck in a role or duties of a role. So, what is your superpower?
Ah, that's a good. I can take that a lot of ways, Victoria. We could have fun if it was an
Take it
adult
however
only.
you want to,
If it was
brother.
an adult only conversation, I can surely tell you what my super. We might as well have fun, right? But no, I don't know. So I will tell you what I believe to be my superpower is to translate spirituality into every language.
Mm.
I am ecumenical at my core, which is
Yes, you
so
are. Yes, you are.
drastically different than how I was raised. I was raised in the apostolic church where men and women couldn't sit on the same side and you couldn't wear nothing but dark colors. And if you wasn't baptized in Jesus' name, you wasn't going to heaven. Even if you were a disciple of Christ or a member of the Christian church, if you wasn't down in the right name, you were going to hell. And what a wonderful change in my
Yes.
life has been wrought since spirituality came into my heart. My first,
Spirituality.
I'm trying to tell you, first trip to Africa changed my whole purview. But before that trip to Africa, I started to realize that this can't be as minuscule and myopic as what they taught us.
Yes.
And the ability to hear God, feel God, and see God in every part of creation, that for me is a superpower. I'm able
Mm.
can hear the message of the gospel when Hindus pray, when Muslims preach, when Jews bow in prayer, when the Orishas, I look for God to speak to me through Imaya and Oshun and Chango and Ilegua. I look for God to talk to me through our indigenous practices. I'm from South Carolina, and we know about ring shouts and the retentions of Africa. I feel like that's a superpower in this day because
Yes, it is.
religion divides us, but relationship unites us. And I
Yes.
can't hate who I'm a part of. And if I see myself as part of you, I
Mm.
don't have no hate for you.
Well, listen, we're winding down to the last question, which is another four-part question, and I really want you
Uh-oh.
to hear me because I wish we had more time because I am loving this conversation. But I was reading a book, and I forgot the author of it. Excuse me, but it's called Leadership Vertigo, and it mentions four pillars of success. And this whole notion of vertigo is and I deal with vertigo from time to time, but anybody who deals with vertigo understand it's the illusion that there's movement when you're still standing
Mm-hmm.
still. And some
Mm-hmm.
churches feel like they're moving, but they're still standing still. There's an illusion that we're growing and we're moving when you really are not. And so when I talk about pillars of success for you, I want to mention, I'm gonna call them out, and I want you to just say whatever is on your heart, right? And tell us what it means for you as a faith leader. Community.
So I think that community is what we intentionally build and not necessarily what we are born into. And I think with community comes a sense of connection.
Mm,
So I believe that every 21st century ministry should have a sense of community that extends outside of the four walls of a local church.
That's great. Community equals connection. I love that. Competence.
You got to know what you're talking about before you can talk. Otherwise, what you're talking ain't gonna make sense to folk. Now, that's my mind. Like, I think that a part of where we come from have taught us if we just throw it up in the air and watch it come down, however it come down, that's God's will. That is incompetency at its best. The truth
Yes.
is, God can use your formal education and your formal training just as God can use someone who says yes with none. The
That's
truth
right.
is, we've got to be competent. And in this day and age, competencies can come in all different forms. If you can't afford formal education, there are alternative routes and paths to being a competent leader. There is
Absolutely.
no excuse for an incompetent leader.
Mm,
None. I don't care how anointed you are. If you are incompetent, wait on competency before you are moved by the anointing, because you're going to wound people if you don't.
that's right. That's right. You're going to wound people. I like that. Credibility.
My grandmama said, your good name is all you got. You ain't got to be perfect, but your name ought to have value. And one of the ways that I preserve myself and my good name is to guard myself against oversaturation.
Mm.
I
Say a
don't
little
need
more
to
about oversaturation.
I don't need to be on everybody's program, and I don't need to be in everybody's pulpit. The truth is, I've given up taking engagements because I need money. I go where I feel called and connected to go. I do, and I show up in places that I feel are mutually beneficial to what I consider to be the call of God. And if that gives me the title of being bougie or antisocial, so it is. I'm not
Amen to that.
looking to be on everybody's platform. Why?
Amen to
Because
that.
it will erode your credibility.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. And I was always taught, Troy, that money should never, ever, money should never, ever, ministry should never chase money. Money will follow ministry.
I'm telling you. I'm
Yes.
telling you.
Yes. And so our last one is compassion.
The truth is, I think that when we are compassionate, when we are moved by compassion, my mother and family members say, I don't understand how you do that. I couldn't be no pastor. I have friends who say that, I couldn't be no pastor because you got a big old heart. It's not about having a big heart. It's about loving people. Had the blessed privilege of ordaining deacons last week during Easter. And during my charge, I said, the moment you stop loving God's people is the moment you should turn your license in to be a deacon. You can't
Mm,
be in ministry is the wrong place if you don't love folk.
absolutely.
Go get you a day job making ice cream and be fine. But the truth is, you cannot do ministry if you don't have a deep sense of compassion for people and love for people. It is my
Absolutely.
compassion that keeps me from giving back to folk what I want to give them, but
Yeah.
give them what grace extended to me, because
Yes.
I am the recipient of a lot of grace and compassion. And if I stay
Absolutely.
connected to that, I can give a lot of grace and
Yes.
compassion.
A long time ago, I heard Bishop Ivy Hilliard say that when he tells his story about when he lost the big church and had to go in a small church and et cetera, and grew from there, he talked about, some of the people turning on him. And he said, and people are like, I couldn't be a pastor, just like you said. But he said that no matter how much they hurt him, he still had to pastor them because they were the sheep called to him.
Yeah.
And so, ministry, like you say, you have to have compassion to do that work. And if you don't have it, don't get into
And let me
ministry.
stress again, compassion is not the absence of boundaries.
Right.
It's clarity around boundaries, but not giving you what my frustration dictates, but
Absolutely.
giving you what my love dictates.
That's good. Not what my frustration dictates, but what my love. So, in the roundup, last question for the evening: how do you measure destiny, legacy, and success all together?
Oh my God.
We
I
like to
don't know
put
that
them
I can.
separate, but how
I
do you
can't
measure it?
answer that. I don't know that I can answer it. I'm
But if you
hoping
can,
that
that's fine.
I'm hoping that after I'm dead and gone, somebody will be gracious and do it for me, right? After I've lived a long life, because I got more living to do, that maybe the writers of my story will be able to measure destiny, legacy, and what's that other element?
Success.
And success. I'm not sure that I'm qualified in this life to measure those things.
That's fine. That's fine if that's how you want to answer it. But listen, Bishop, Troy, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation this evening. Really, really, I saw some of the comments. People are saying that, they didn't notice about you and they're glad that they chimed in to get to know you. And too often we make judgment calls on people based on what we do. And we don't really try to get to know one another. And I'm so glad that I've had opportunity, I don't know, for a while now, since the early 90s, to get to know you and just see your journey. You have been evolving and evolving and evolving and evolving. And you really, really represent the whole theme about evolutionizing my greatness, because you are a great person. You're a great spirit. You're a great soul. I love you. I literally love you. And I don't get to do much with you, but I still love you. You know what I mean? And I always find myself interconnected with you throughout life. And so, although we have some years in distance between us, but
we won't tell nobody. We won't tell nobody.
Don't tell nobody. Don't tell nobody. But listen, do you have anything that you want to say to the audience and to the viewers? And when we replay this, we will replay it next Sunday, and that the viewers may hear anything additional that you just want to add and say to the people.
I think what I'll leave you with is what I left the church with this morning on our prayer call and at 3:00. What my goal is to inspire someone to try it again. As long as you are living, you have a right to try it again.
Try it again.
I don't care what the past was. I don't care what the last result was. A part of God's gift to you in humanity is the ability to keep trying it again. And the truth is, whether you succeed or fail, the trying it again is where the victory is. It lets every enemy know that I'm not out for the count. So I encourage you to pick up something that you put down, try it again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Try it again. And that's it, you all. Thank you. I almost forgot. We got a couple of announcements and then we'll be done. But Troy says, Bishop-elect Troy Sanders says, try it again. Troy, my friend, says, try it again. So let's look at a couple of announcements. Who's coming up next? Yes. Next, in the next 2 weeks, we will have, in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, we will have 3 great experts trending forward. 3 distinctive and compelling experts share what it means to evolutionize greatness through emotional consciousness. So we're going to have Dr. Brian Woodford with us. We're going to have Dr. Pay, and I don't know how to say her name, and I'm not going to mess it up. I always call her Dr. Pay or Dr. D. And we're going to have Dr. Jonathan Shepard with us. And so you don't want to miss that. We're going to be talking a lot around mental health and mental health awareness and what it means to get past some of the stuff or not ignore some of the stuff. And how do we interconnect faith and mental health? And so we're going to be dealing with all of that on our next show. And the person behind the scenes responsible for all this is OG. It's not for Original Gangster, but it is for Only Greatness. And so we're so grateful to Crystal Glenn for being our production person. She does live streaming production, graphic design, multimedia production. She is the one behind the scenes doing it. She's the one who creates all the flyers. And so I'm so appreciative to her. She is celebrating her birthday this weekend, and I am happy that she is still working. Yes, because Troy mentioned about always working, and she is working. And so I'm grateful to her. Listen, to our studio audience, thank you so much for always being faithful in watching us. And even those who watch the replay, I come back and I see hundreds and hundreds of people have watched. And I am so thankful that you are following Essentials Unleashed with Leadership on the Go. We have some more things coming out in the next year. And so stay tuned for what God is doing through this vessel. Amen. God bless you. See you in 2 weeks.